I don't remember you raising me. What is this anyway? Frankly, this is kidnapping, isn't it? Don't say such awful things. After saying that, Hillary slapped my face hard enough to make a sound. Inside, I thought, good, do it more. Eventually, the taxi arrived at a somewhat dingy 3-story building. Surprised? I'm a president's wife, married into wealth. You're still poor, right? So I thought I'd share some of that with you. Indeed, she was trying to use me. Eventually, my mother Diane and my father came to find me, and I firmly declared, no, this person is my only mother. She has been by my side, providing a warm home 3 times longer than the time you claim to have raised me. So what, you're saying you chose to live in poverty with this sick man willingly? As Hillary said this, my father burst into a big laugh. Hey, Hillary. I'll introduce you to a company with an annual revenue of $500 million and the family. What? My name is Sherry Miller. I'm 18 and will be starting college this spring. I've just finished my university entrance exams and am now enjoying my freedom from studying. Hey, time's almost up, isn't it? Dressed in an apron, my father Phil shouted from the stairs leading to my second-floor room. I know. I shouted back. Today is the day for university enrollment procedures. I've decided to attend a university in the neighboring state. So I have to attend a session about dorms and apartments offered by the school. Maybe I should go with you? It's fine, I can go alone. Really? My father looked a bit sad. Your mother wanted to go too. She has work, it can't be helped. Yes, we are a family of 3. What sets us apart from other families is that my mother works outside and earns well, while my father is a stay-at-home dad who takes care of the household. My father Phil is now 48. Diane, my mother, is 48 years younger. She and I are not blood related. But to me, she is the only mother I acknowledge. I will never acknowledge the woman who abandoned my sick father. And a 3-year-old me to become some company president's mistress, my mother. I refuse to acknowledge her. The real mother abandoned us 15 years ago. Her name was Hillary. Even saying a mother regarding her angers me, so I always refer to her dismissively in my mind. Of course, I would never say such things in front of my father. He is a kind man, and if I spoke of my biological mother that way, it would surely make him sad. I don't want to see my father's sad face. I always want to see him smiling gently, as he does now with Diane and me. Hillary left us 15 years ago for 2 reasons. One was my father's illness. The other was an affair with the president of the company where she was working at the time. Back then, my father didn't have the strength to confront Hillary's affair. His illness was incurable, and at that time, his symptoms were particularly severe. Hearing this, Hillary yelled at him. Incurable? So you're saying it's a terminal illness? In a hospital room with many beds lined up, Hillary insensitively said such things, which finally disillusioned my father. That's why he readily signed the divorce papers that Hillary presented. I couldn't let such a woman remain my mother. At that time, I was entrusted to my paternal grandparents. They would hug me and cry, feeling sorry for me. I realized around high school that half of their tears came from frustration. Now, they live a comfortable life in a distant paid elderly home. But back then, the atmosphere was always tense due to Hillary's treatment and my father's illness. My life changed drastically when Diane, my current mother, and my father met. His illness wasn't immediately life-threatening at the time, but he needed a long hospital stay. At that time, he had to be continuously administered medicine via 4. Now he lives a normal life, but back then, he was always accompanied by an 4 stand. That's when he met Diane, who was also hospitalized. My father was 33 years old then. Diane was 25. At that time, my father managed to keep working remotely to continue contributing to his company. The company wanted to keep him because he was a capable employee. However, the outlook was grim. That's when they met. Diane was also hospitalized due to stress and overwork. Transitioning to hospital life from a busy schedule, she was living depressive days. As they got to know each other and shared their situations, they concluded that they could manage them if they were together. The details of their relationship are naturally not something they would discuss with their daughter. Even for them, marriage wasn't immediately possible, especially for Diane. It seems the community welcomed the idea of an early marriage. However, it was not easy to gain their understanding when the partner was 8 years older and a divorced parent. From the start, Diane Miller was both kind and strict to me. She cared for me and disciplined me where necessary. After being discharged from the hospital, Diane frequently visited my father amidst her busy work schedule. Over the years, our relationship deepened, and after 5 years of being together, they managed to gain approval from those around them and got married. We have lived quietly and happily for 10 years since. Yet, there it was. Sherry. It's Sherry, right? A voice I didn't recognize stopped me as I was about to get my dormitory information after completing my university paperwork. It was Hillary. Hey, Sherry, do you remember me? I'm your mom. With those words, spoken in a coaxing tone, Hillary approached me. I was startled and almost ran away, not recognizing her. How could I recognize a woman I hadn't seen once since I was 3 years old? And who now claimed to be my mother? Who are you? I asked. Don't be so formal. Aren't I your mother? That's when I realized she was the person in the photos. My grandmother used to complain about why we still had that woman's photos around. It was unavoidable. All photos of me until I was 3 inevitably included her in close proximity. My father didn't want to throw away my photos, so he must have reluctantly kept those with her in them. I heard this compassionate reason from Diane. Unfortunately, I don't know you. What? Are you angry? Angry that I didn't visit? As Hillary edged closer with a forced smile, I replied. If I went with a stranger, my family would be upset. Don't be so cold. As Hillary reached out to grab my hand, I hastily shook her off and headed back home. When I opened the door to our apartment, I could hear humming. My father was preparing a meal in the kitchen. Every day, he thought about and cooked dishes that Diane and I loved. However, I wanted to finish this conversation before Diane returned. Dad. I rushed into the kitchen. Oh, Sherry, what's wrong? You look pale. And you're back sooner than I thought.
Yeah.
Sorry, the dorm stuff will have to wait. I sat at the kitchen table, and after my father gave me some water, I told him. She was at the university. Who? Her. The one who abandoned us 15 years ago. Phil, surprised, pulled up a chair next to me. You recognized her face? I've seen her in photos, and more importantly, she was desperately trying to approach me. That's troubling. He crossed his arms and pondered. What should we do? She'll probably show up at the university again, won't she? Maybe. There's no need to meet her. We have nothing to do with her anymore. But still. He tilted his head and furrowed his brows. Why is she approaching you now, after all this time? What do you mean? He didn't answer. Shortly after, Diane came home. Welcome back. I'm home.
Ah.
All my favorite dishes, thank you. That's what I love about Diane. She's always cheerful and never stinting with her gratitude. Her job is really demanding. She leaves early in the morning and often returns late at night. Possibly busier than a typical father in other families. Whether it's because of that or out of consideration for me, Diane never tried to have another child. I once casually asked her about it, and she replied, "Actually, I'm just too busy to think about having another child. And as far as I'm concerned, Sherry, you are my only daughter." Still, I can't believe she never wanted another child with someone she loves. But including this aspect, I respect and am grateful for Diane. And I hope she continues to be happy. Luckily, she's still 40. She could still have one child. I think it would be better if they had another child after I go to college or move out. After all, we have a very skilled house husband at home. From that evening, my phone was inundated with calls from an unknown number. "Dad, this." Showing him the call history, my father hurriedly pulled out an old address book. It was probably a number not registered on his current phone. As he flipped through the book, he eventually sighed deeply with a look of disgust. "It's her, isn't it? How did she get your number?" "I don't know." "Has she not changed her number all this time?" "Seems like it." "Well, she was always one to avoid hassle." Diane, fresh out of the bath with her hair still wet, asked me what was wrong. "You look tense, are you okay?" Phil signaled with his eyes, asking what we should do. I nodded. "Mom, actually today, right in front of the university. My biological mother stormed up to meet me." "What? Are you okay? Did she do anything to you?" Diane immediately showed concern, dropping her towel. "I'm fine, she didn't do anything. But now I have to go back another day for the dorm and apartment introductions." "Oh dear. I wish I could have been there with you." Saying this, Diane sighed heavily. "You better go with her next time." "Yes, we'll take care of the dorm stuff then, too. Since there's a weekend in between, how about Monday?" "Yes," said Diane, pausing to think for a while. Phil, picking up the abandoned towel, dried her hair to prevent her from catching a cold. And even dried her hair with a hairdryer. Seeing them like this, I thought to myself, what a good couple they are. I always want our family to stay just like this. That's why it scares me to think what Hillary, who has just reappeared, might be planning. After spending the entire weekend at home, I decided to go back to the university with my father on Monday. We walked slowly to the station. The university is a few stations away from the nearest one. As we strolled leisurely side by side, talking about what the dorm might be like, or the cost if it were an apartment, suddenly, I felt my body lose balance. "Sherry!" My father shouted as I was grabbed by the arm and dragged into a taxi. "Driver, hurry up and go." I recognized the voice that jumped into my ears. It was Hillary. Through the window, I saw my father's panicked figure. But before he could open the door, the taxi started moving. "What are you doing?" Once I managed to steady myself, I shouted at the top of my lungs. "Because you keep ignoring my calls." Who answers calls from an unknown number nowadays? Exactly. That's why I had to come directly like this. As Hillary leaned in close, I flinched slightly. "Won't you come with me without saying anything?" "No." Such a stranger's manner. "Aren't I your mother?" I scoffed at her words. "What's with that attitude? Do you really think you are a mother to me?" I chose my words carefully and made sure even the taxi driver could hear them. "I gave birth to you, so you are my daughter. I don't remember you raising me. And what is this anyway? Frankly, this is kidnapping, isn't it? Don't say such awful things." After saying that, Hillary slapped my face hard enough to make a sound. Inside, I thought, good, do it more. Eventually, the taxi arrived at a somewhat dingy 3-story building. What is this place? This is our company, Hillary replied. Surprised? I'm a president's wife, married into wealth. You're still poor, right? So I thought I'd share some of my wealth with you. Indeed, she was trying to use me. She ushered me into the building and pushed me into a room right by the door, and locked me inside. I banged on the door, shouting, "What are you doing?" to Hillary outside. Just wait here for a bit, please. What in the world was this about? I took out my smartphone and immediately sent a message to my father saying, "I'm here." I sent a screenshot of my current location on the map. And pictures of the view from the room's window. Soon, a reply came. Just stay there, I'll figure something out. Of course, that had been my intention. Eventually, Hillary unlocked the door and took me out. Holding my arm, she led me upstairs to a room about midway down the second floor. I could hear several people's voices inside. Hillary banged open the door. As expected, several people were inside, appearing to be in a meeting with a desk and whiteboard set up. What is this? We are in a meeting right now. A young man with glasses stood up and approached us. Hillary pulled me inside. It's not something, Ted. I was his wife, after all, I have a right to participate in meetings about the company's future. You weren't invited. That's no way to talk to your stepmother, is it? So, this glasses-wearing Ted is the president's son. But the whiteboard had a next management strategy or something written on it. And the president himself wasn't present, so, it means you're just Dad's second wife. And you were involved with him even when my mother was still around. What stepmother are you talking about? Exactly. Everything concerning the company after the president's passing was already discussed after the funeral. Hillary, what are you doing coming here all of a sudden? Oh, acting all high and mighty just because you used to be my boss. Then, for some reason, Hillary pushed me forward. Look, Ted. Your stepsister here is struggling with college fees. Couldn't you spare a little to help her out with her tuition? What? I was shocked. Was this why I was brought here? Tuition. Ted's tone slightly changed. Yes. This girl is my real daughter. She's just turned 18 and has just started college. She's living a poor life with her sick father. Don't you think if you had any heart, you'd let me have a bit more of that inheritance? I looked at Ted's face. The confusion was evident. Clearly, it was my turn to speak. What are you talking about? I haven't been informed about any of this. What are you saying now? Well, it's true, isn't it? I was brought here all of a sudden. All of a sudden? Ted caught onto my words. Yes, all of a sudden. I was supposed to be going to handle dormitory paperwork with my father. Not university procedures. So, you mean the university paperwork and the tuition have already been handled? Yes, exactly. Ted glanced sharply at Hillary. Hillary seemed puzzled, as if wondering, what? What? Then Ted continued to question me. Then how, and why, did you end up here? In a taxi. I have no reason to be here. I was forcibly brought by this woman. Be quiet. Then Hillary slapped my other cheek. What strength! It stung painfully. Does this woman not understand the concept of restraint? Anyway, I needed to buy time. My father, and likely Diane, would be taking some action. During this time, I needed to extract as much information as possible from these people. I see, you really know nothing about this. Ted began to explain. I am the son of the former president of this company, and I'm slated to be the next president. So you're saying you're my stepsister? No, I certainly do not feel that way. I stated firmly. I was abandoned by this woman when I was just 3, along with my sick father. The atmosphere chilled instantly. All eyes turned towards Hillary. How could she be so shallow? Does she really think I remain the 3-year-old she left? Does she expect me, now a university student, to be terrified and compliant? Perhaps for her, the past 15 years never happened. I remember well. You called us just once, remember? What you said then? What did I say? The same thing you said to me earlier. Laughing about how you are a wealthy president's wife and we are nothing but poor people. The room visibly recoiled. You said that. When was this? Well, since you mentioned marrying into wealth, it must have been after she remarried. I didn't know anything about it. Maybe about 10 years ago? So when you were just a little girl in elementary school, you were spoken to that harshly? I nodded. Well, by that time, her words weren't much of an issue to me anymore. Just then, there were sounds of people running into the building. Sherry. Are you okay? Sherry, are you all right? Where are you? I heard the loud voices of my father and Diane, along with several others. I stuck my head out into the corridor and yelled, "Over here." Dad, Mom. Following my voice, they ran down the stairs and through the hallways. Sherry. With a clatter, they opened the door. You're safe. Sherry. I'm so glad. Saying this, Diane rushed over and hugged me tightly. Yes, I was so worried. I'm okay. Got slapped twice, though. Oh, twice. The lawyer behind my parents examined my face closely and raised his camera. Let me take a photo. Please do, I said, pushing my face forward. The cheek Hillary had hit really hurt. Let's take a good picture for evidence. Who are you people? Then Hillary pointed at my parents and yelled. Oh, have you forgotten the face of the husband you left 15 years ago? What? Phil? Phil, is that you? What's with that healthy look? Is it bad to look healthy?
Ah.
I see. That's why she didn't immediately understand I was with my father. She really thought my father had been bedridden and sick all this time. You said it was an incurable disease. It hasn't been cured. But just because it's not cured doesn't mean I can't live. Do you know what remission is? Remission? She apparently didn't know. Remission means that the symptoms are temporarily diminished or gone. There could be a chance of recovery, but also a high risk of relapse. So, it's not that he has recovered. He's always careful about his health, regularly takes several medications, and continues to visit the hospital. So, it's not untrue to say it's an incurable disease. Hillary snapped at Diane's comment. What about you? What about you? What are you doing to my daughter? Look at her cheeks. She's my daughter. I can do whatever I want with her. I couldn't stay silent at that. No, this woman here is my only mother. She has been by my side, providing a warm home 3 times longer than the time you claim to have raised me. So what, you choose to live in poverty with this sick man? At this, my father let out a big, hearty laugh. Hey, Hillary, I'll introduce you to a company with an annual revenue of $500 million. What? Well then, let me introduce myself properly, Hillary. I'm Diane Miller, his wife. I've heard about how you left a sick man and a 3-year-old Sherry to become another man's mistress. It seems you really are as unreasonable as the stories suggest. Then, Ted, intrigued by the conversation, chimed in. Now that's an interesting story. I'd love to hear more about it. By the way, Mrs. Miller, when you mentioned a company with $500 million in revenue, are you perhaps referring to TL Corporation? Yes, I believe we've had dealings with your company. Diane flashed a bright smile to everyone but Hillary. Yes, the busy woman who supports our family daily had been tasked with the company's presidency since her 20s. Originally, Diane met my father when she was overwhelmed by the sudden responsibilities thrust upon her. Her body and mind screaming out under the pressure, leading to her hospitalization. Born as the only daughter in the founding family, she lost her parents in an accident early on, taking over the presidency at just 25. She struggled immensely under the high expectations and her own inability to meet them, leading to stress-induced gastritis. During her hospitalization aimed at remission, she met my father and me during one of our visits. I heard that my father told her that sometimes it's essential to delegate impossible tasks to trustworthy people, which greatly eased her mind. Amid her relatives meddling with marriage proposals, finding solace and comfort in my father's company, she decided to marry him. You were quite thrilled to be the president's wife after the previous one passed away. But my current wife is a president herself. Exactly. Ted also said. TL Corporation handles all the specialized cleaning operations needed by our department. And this lady here is the president. Anyone slightly familiar with the economy would recognize her. Hillary was stunned by Ted's words. Yes, that's right. Our company performs a broad range of cleaning tasks, from ordinary cleaning to specialized services. While I believe we've always had dealings with your company since my father's time, it seems this contract needs reevaluation. Diane looked around sternly. After all, shouldn't we cancel contracts with a company that harbors someone who kidnaps our daughter? I can't trust such a company. The executives present at the meeting were taken aback. Please, let's not go that far. Our business can't operate without their cooperation. What? Really? Hillary seemed confused by what was being said. Hillary, you weren't aware of that? And yet you tried to stop me from becoming president and tried to withdraw money without knowing? You're truly detrimental to this company. Isn't that right, everyone? Absolutely. That's for sure. The company's upper management echoed in agreement. What? You're saying that? The inheritance Dad left for you in his will was given long ago. What did you do with that money? Trying to extort more money this way, have you perhaps squandered it all? Or were you already in debt? Ted continued to press, while Diane interjected. Perhaps she spent it on something, no? Recently, a suspicious person approached our daughter. So I had it investigated in a hurry over 2 days. 2 days.
Ah.
Right, over the weekend. Then our company's lawyer, who had been taking photos earlier, nodded. At the president's request, we conducted some investigation into this person. It appears she has been patronizing nightclubs for a long time and contributing financially to them. Also, it seems she has been receiving payment demands due to her falling behind. She was doing that, huh? Wow. I gave Hillary a look of utter disbelief, as if to emphasize the absurdity. Thank you for looking into this. No problem. It's bad for our business partners to be associated with someone who has such issues. Yes, those who are detrimental to the company should be dealt with as quickly as possible. As Ted spoke, our lawyer nodded emphatically. Then, suddenly, several men entered from the back. Hillary Adams, you are under arrest for abduction and imprisonment. The men, flashing their police badges, marched in and handcuffed Hillary. What? I just took my daughter with me. We've been divorced for ages, and you dumped the custody on me, remember? At that point, you became a stranger. And I never received any child support from you. What right do you have to act as a mother? I added, incredulous. Really, how can you not realize how wrong your actions are? Taking me in front of Dad like that in a taxi? How insolent. Insolence is fine by me if it worsens your impression. I just wanted to say this. I fixed my gaze sternly on Hillary. I never wanted to think about you. Just disappear and never show your face again. Hillary froze at those words. Then, as the police began to push her out, they took her away. Hillary was formally arrested for kidnapping and is currently under interrogation. It was such a sloppy crime. Not noticing my father walking nearby was one thing. But the fact that she abruptly dragged me into a taxi was particularly significant. In the car, I deliberately spoke loudly and clearly, making it known that I was being taken against my will, and that I no longer had any emotional connection with my mother. I wanted the taxi driver to hear how unwilling I was. As expected, the suspicious driver relayed our conversation over the radio. And the head of the taxi company, finding the recording suspicious, had kept a record of it. It was incredibly foolish of Hillary not to confiscate my smartphone. With today's technology, it's easy to pinpoint a location and send a map screenshot. Well, I had learned such crisis management from Diane. She had taught me at home how to pinpoint my location in case of emergencies. A skill she had learned in her youth. Apparently, the money Hillary had embezzled was significant. And the company is demanding its return. There will be a criminal trial regarding the abduction charges. And she will undoubtedly end up behind bars. We have no intention of showing mercy, no matter what her lawyers say. Hillary should come to terms with her own shallowness. Okay, smile for the camera. On the day of my university entrance ceremony, my father and I were taking photos under a cherry tree. Now it's my turn. Saying this, Diane handed the camera to my father and switched places with him. Right, you two look great together, especially with those cherry blossoms. Father said something that seemed a bit cheesy, probably influenced by the spring atmosphere. It's going to be a while before we can see each other again, huh? Diane said, her eyes welling up with tears. Father gently patted her shoulder. Facing them, I spoke up. Hey, I have a request. What is it? This time, I really want to see a brother or sister. At that, both of them blushed. At this age? Come on, Mom, you're only 40. You can definitely have another child. Now that I'm an adult, why don't you two spend some time alone and then introduce me to a little brother or sister? Don't say that. With that, Diane hugged me. You are my only daughter. That's true, but Mom, you have so much love to give. I'm sure you'll be lonely without me. Oh dear, I should have made you go to a closer school. I chuckled at that. In truth, wanting a sibling or worrying about her being lonely was just a pretext. Diane is currently the head of the company. But I believe that I shouldn't be the one to take over from her. My father agrees with this too. After all, I am my father's stepchild, not my mother's biological child. Even if she treats me as her own child, the outside world may not see it that way. Especially since the company is a well-established, mid-sized family business, with a tradition of keeping management within the family. She must be aware of this. After a moment of silence, Diane nodded deeply. Well, maybe I'll try just a little harder. She smiled shyly and hesitantly. No matter how things turn out, we will remain a family. We have managed well so far. And surely, we will continue to do so, harmoniously and happily.